That gate there is the ruin of something that used to be really interesting here. It was a real destination. Today this is just another bend on Strickland Avenue that gets used by people going to and from work in their homes, or maybe the long way around to get up to the mountain. But just up there used to be something quite unusual.
Fairy Gorge was a tea room, most active between the wars. In order to attract customers, they had a variety of attractions, such as the Canadian snake woman. They had a kind of automaton that would tip its hat as you approached, as well as something called the man-powered aeroplane. Behind the gate was this statue, something described as the Tasmanian interpretation of a Javanese Buddha. Another way up is along the abandoned section of Marlin Road. Tea rooms and alike were not uncommon in South Hobart. This particular one was on Old Farm Road. By the nature of the materials, they tended to have this Art Nouveau appearance. One of the very last streets in Hobart to be sealed, Old Farm Road remains only 1 car width wide. And it runs along next to Guy Fawkes Rivulet before joining up at Cascades. For a long time the suburb used to be called Cascades or Upper Macquarie Street. The relaxed naming process was still going on when the very formal stone was erected. Boundary Stone, Hobart Town, 1857.
This residential complex here is called Tanner's Row, and that's because the site used to be a tannery. It's one of the many examples of industry that was built on the rivulet that led to the gradual establishment of South Hobart.
The location of this lime kiln has been lost to us. It was one of the many structures in South Hobart that came to be and went away, all without record.
So there's this big bit of metal here, and it was from something, but I don't know what it was. It's just a small mystery down here in South Hobart. Along the rivulet, particularly on this side, there are a few ruins of domestic buildings. You can see the foundations, and you can also see these things here. There used to be orchards along the shores of the rivulet, and there are still a few plants left over. That particular one's a plum. You can still eat them. This bridge here is one of the dozen or so that currently crosses the rivulet. And beneath it, you can actually see down there there are remnants of an earlier bridge. Now, if every bridge that is on the Rivulet now, there's one or two that have come and gone before it, most of which have been washed away in floods at various times. So eventually this one will go too. There are no cars here right now, but this is a car park. Before it was a car park, it was a factory. And I was attending South Hobart Primary School the day that the factory burnt down. There was so much smoke, poisonous smoke, that they had to call the school day off. That's probably why I remember it most. But I also remember seeing the building on fire and the black smoke rising up. Before it was a factory, it was something else. And before it was something else, that wall behind me, that sort of cliff face, was a quarry. Parts all along the Rivulet were quarries at different points. People needed stone for various things, so they just took it from the land beneath them. A lot of them are hidden now though, of course, because time takes over and nature returns, and plants are covering most of those quarry faces now. Two figures resting on a quarried stone. A detail from a larger painting. The 1844 watercolour by John Skinner Prout. Between the Rivulet and the mountain, there is a large facility. This wall and everything on the other side is part of the female factory. It's a UNESCO World Heritage listed site, and it's an unusual thing to have in a suburb. But what's perhaps more unusual in retrospect is that a suburb as genteel as this was ever built around such a site of nastiness and horror. What do you think, Dov? All right. The female factory operated mostly from 1828 to 1856. Primarily a female prison, it was also a facility for the extraction of labour for the benefit of the government. Better behaved women might work at the hospital or take care of children in the nursery. Some might work spinning wool or making cloth. The others were forced to do intense chores like cleaning or laundry. The building was in a terrible position for a prison. Shadowed in the valley, there was little sun in the winter. In the summertime, the buildings would bake with heat radiating from the sandstone walls, walls that were higher than they are today. The majority of women would at some point be assigned out to the homes of free settlers, where they worked as slaves until their release date. The best hope for a female convict was to maybe marry someone who wasn't too horrible to you. Today the ruins have been renovated for tourist access, and it's far more pleasant than it ever was when in operation. Across the road is a larger-than-life-size sculpture by Rowan Gillespie. The pregnant woman is destined to have her child taken from her. Locals like to gift the statue flowers, a futile act of kindness. On the far away side of the building, there is a very high wall. Inside that wall, there is a door that has been bricked up, a door that we cannot pass beyond.